Hi guys, today's like goal is 10 likes. Let's start the episode simultaneously. Within the command chamber of the mystical tower, all the instructors were observing the students. Among them was also Vinci Morgue. According to the data displayed by the system, the current status of the participants revealed that out of 400 who initially entered, only 149 remained alive. The distribution of these survivors was as follows. The mystical tower had 46 from Boot Camp Vangian, closely followed by 45 from Lemura, with Colossio Academy trailing at just 2-3. The attention of the commander from Boot Camp Vangian fixated on the hologram of the mountain, a smug grin spreading across his face. His satisfaction stemmed from Colossio Academy's students who were already few in number, having suffered a devastating blow. Hanheim had just systematically eliminated their first-year students in large groups. The director of the Lemur, Hippolyte, began touching her chin, smiling softly, remarking that Hanheim appeared very formidable. The master of the mystical tower, Blue Whale, stroked his beard, extended his hand, and couldn't help but feel pleased. Finally, the arrogant know-it-all Hanheim had revealed his true nature. He believed that Colossio Academy had no luck whatsoever in this competition. Vinci Morgue looked down in silence, uncertain of what to say. Blue Whale's gaze fixed on him, and with a curious expression, he asked what Vinci Morgue was pondering so deeply. Lost in thought, Vinci Morgue stared at the hologram in silence. Deep in contemplation, he extended his hand and, with concern shining in his eyes, voiced the doubt that gnawed at him, feeling the burden of his role as host of the survival tournament. He questioned whether others truly believed that this map was safe for hosting the event. With an arrogant expression, Blue Whale questioned his meaning. Vinci Morgue looked again at the hologram and, with a serious tone, explained that the tower hadn't modeled the tournament site as an ordinary jungle. Instead, it was based on the deep, unreleased zones of the jungle. This meant that not only was the terrain more hostile, but the summoned magical beasts also grew progressively more dangerous, reaching levels beyond the students' capacity to handle. He recalled reports sent by the Morgue family years ago specifically about one of those unreleased zones where a level S magical beast had appeared. It was an event that caused significant casualties and destruction. His eyes widened with terror, as a terrible suspicion struck him. What if a beast of that magnitude appeared in the jungle during the tournament? Would the tower's system be able to operate correctly? Even more unsettling, he wondered if they were truly prepared to prevent a catastrophe of that scale. Blue Whale looked down and clarified that this was not news, but merely a rumor, something he'd also heard. He placed a hand over his face and explained that since that incident, no other witness had come forward. He emphasized that those spreading such rumors were members of the Morgue family, who openly opposed his tower. That's why, from the start, he didn't trust their words. He added that the beasts appearing on the tournament field were summoned to adapt to the students' abilities. Currently, the participants ranged from basic sword experts to fourth circle mages comparable to low-level graduates. Blue Whale then imagined Vikir, with eyes shining malevolently, explaining that there was a condition for this to occur. If someone possessed 7th circle level skills or higher, in other words, at the swordmaster level, they could summon beasts the system couldn't control. However, he insisted this was nearly impossible, or rather, entirely impossible. And in the unlikely event that an accident did happen, the solution was simple: suspend the competition. Meanwhile, Tutor Sancho, Piggy, and Bianca appeared in the tournament's waiting area. The tutor rubbed his head, looking embarrassed, while Piggy placed his hands on his head and started freaking out. Blue Whale told them not to worry. If a student's HP shield reached 0, they would be automatically teleported back to the waiting room. Because of this, he couldn't see what the problem was. With an arrogant expression, he stared at Vinci Morgue and questioned whether he was protesting just because there were few students from Colossio. Furious, Vinci Morgue stood up and demanded he stop spouting nonsense. Blue Whale turned his head slightly and made it clear that this was a gathering of the Empire's top mages. Both the Morgue family, known solely for their reputation, and Colossio Academy were fundamentally different. He clasped his hands and, with a smile, said it was a waste of time to worry about fantasies that probably wouldn't even happen. Hearing this, Vinci Morgue gritted his teeth, his eyes widening with anger. He knew it was impossible to reason with this old man. At the same time, in the forest, Vikir sat in front of a campfire, hands clasped, and with a curious look, asked if Tutor Piggy, Bianca, and Sancho had been eliminated. Sinclair, sitting nearby, nodded. She held her magic staff tightly, eyes filled with sorrow, revealing that Hanheim had attacked the tutors and Piggy without warning, just like the others. Vikir's eyes grew serious as he remembered his enemies. He recognized Hanheim as one of the great heroes from the era of devastation, but he also knew that even heroes from the same age could have vastly different powers. Sinclair felt fortunate to have found Vikir, but she was confused. She didn't understand why his HP remained intact. Our protagonist had 100 HP points. He stared at her silently. Granule, arms crossed, leaning against a tree, listened to their conversation. Sinclair's eyes brightened with joy, and she admitted that she got tired quickly losing HP just by running a bit through the forest. But Vikir, on the other hand, was truly incredible. Lost in his thoughts, Vikir remained silent. Granule clenched his teeth and widened his eyes with rage. He couldn't stand seeing them so close. He knew they were simply hunting beasts deep in the forest and maintaining their good condition and full HP. He wondered what was so impressive about that, believing he could do the same. His eyes turned serious as he grabbed several arrows, aiming his bow at Vikir. Seeing this, Vikir panicked, raised his arms, and shouted that he hadn't said anything wrong. Sinclair's attention was drawn to Granule, and she felt a little confused. The truth was, a tentacled monster was about to attack Granule. Without wasting any more time, Vikir fired his arrows. Granule ducked, closed his eyes, covered his head, and started screaming like a madman. The arrow struck the tentacles of the beast. Someone holding a magic staff was surprised by Vikir's instinct, despite using silence magic to hide their approach. Vikir had still sensed Sinclair and the others. Granule stood up and ran toward them. The student who launched the attack belonged to the Women's University. Lemira, with an arrogant look, thinking the Colossian students believed that hiding here would keep them safe. Nearby was a girl with a shield at 70 HP and an archer with 81 HP. She touched her hair confidently, pointing at them with her staff, calling them arrogant. She had 85 HP. It was nighttime, and one of them recognized Sinclair. Her eyes widened in surprise and confusion. The archer asked her friend if she really knew Sinclair, then stared at Sinclair with a serious expression, revealing that Sinclair was the infamous traitor. Despite passing first in Nemesis's entrance exam, she had ended up at Colossio Academy. The archer warned her not to say this in front of the president. Hearing this, Sinclair's eyes filled with fear and worry. Lovegood Merlin couldn't help but get furious, demanding Sinclair how she dared reject the Lemira, the Empire's top female academy, just to attend Colossio. Her eyes shone with arrogance as she questioned whether Sinclair had gone to Colossio for a trivial reason like romance. Mocking her further, she asked when handsome boys had appeared at Colossio. At that moment, her face turned red like a tomato, her attention fixed on Vikir. She was amazed, unable to understand how one face could embody nerdiness, tenderness, sensuality, and beauty all at once. She admitted he was totally her type. Our protagonist felt a little confused and began to drool at the thought of Vikir. The archer and her friend looked somewhat bewildered by her reaction. Suddenly, someone placed a hand on Vikir's face. She clenched her fist tightly, glaring with rage, and demanded that Lovegood Merlin stop staring at Vikir. Hearing this, Lovegood Merlin's eyes flashed with malice, and a murderous aura emanated from her body. Her friends panicked, sensing danger. She held her magic staff tightly, and tentacles began to emerge from her body. She couldn't believe Sinclair had just said that. She activated her powers, and soon, tentacles shot out from the ground. Vikir and Sinclair watched silently as her violence unfolded. Lovegood Merlin's eyes burned with fury. She screamed threats to kill Sinclair, and her summoned tentacles lunged toward her. Elsewhere, in the forest, several explosions erupted caused by Hanheim, who now had 83 HP, smiling arrogantly. He told his enemies to stop running and surrender immediately, as there was nothing a healer could do alone. Facing Dolores, who clenched her teeth and extended her hands to create a protective barrier, he made it clear she had no escape. Her eyes widened in fear as she saw she was surrounded. Hanheim approached her, eyes gleaming with malice, and assured her that if she fell, her academy would lose all chances of victory. The survival tournament would then be a victory for the mystical tower. Dolores panted heavily, but refused to give up. She knew she couldn't fall here. Suddenly, a swordsman appeared, ready to strike. His presence caught Hanheim's attention, leaving both confused. Ill as Bakira, with mana swirling around him and eyes shining with excitement. He urged Hanheim not to be so confident. Bakira swung his sword forcefully, attacking. Hanheim reacted quickly, summoning a barrier to block the strike. Gritting his teeth, he realized Bakira was a graduate. Bakira's eyes shone with joy, and, noticing Hanheim had reached Class 4, he pressed on, attacking again with all his might. His sword clashed against Hanheim's barrier. At the same time, the tentacles Lovegood Merlin summoned advanced rapidly toward Vikir. Just then, the Baskerville triplets cut the tentacles into pieces with their blades. Vikir prepared to shoot his bow, recognizing that this magic resembled what the Morgue's 3 flowers used, though this was a complex combination of 3 spells, requiring incredible focus. Despite the intense emotions, his eyes widened in fear as he sensed a strange mana. His gaze filled with terror. Vikir turned around. Crows began to fly through the forest, and he wondered about this strange energy. The ground started to tremble and crack. Hanheim looked confused, unsure of what was happening. Bakira gazed at the ground and said he had never heard of earthquakes in deep forests. Suddenly, something emerged from the earth, drawing everyone's attention. Their eyes widened with shock, fear, and surprise overtook them. Vikir and Sinclair's attention also fixated on it. They were confused. A gigantic spider emerged from the ground. Vikir's eyes widened again in surprise. The spider opened its mouth and roared. She was the queen of 8 legs? That's it for today. Subscribe.